Basically, he was actually one of the most renowned feministic novelists. He was a novelist. Mahnur, can you repeat this part? He was what? He was known for writing his novels. All right. Thomas Hardy, when you look at his character, when you look at him, even, he appears to be a rustic person. Every poem that he has written, or every novel that he has written, which are very few, by the way, um, they revolve around the rural environment of the 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 rural environment of the villages. Basically, we're talking about the village life. He was very much fascinated about it. And then why is that so? He was talking about, I'm giving you a bit background about him. You won't be able to understand a single word unless you get to know about who was Thomas Hardy. He was a he was a great advocate for feminism. He was feministic. You make your points down. What do we mean by pessimistic poet? It means that whatever he wrote, he was very close to the reality of the Victorian society. The Victorian society has taken its name from Queen Victoria, and this was the time frame in the 1800s, where there was the height of industrial revolution, in which young, obviously, young men, children were made to work in the factories. So he says that death has something fascinating to tell us. And he also emphasized upon the idea of, you know, writing about darkness, poverty, you know, and he talks about fate and destiny, that we all humans are the puppets in the hands of fate, and we are going to be tested and we are going to be suffering. So you can see in this poem that a wife in London, why London was very close to Thomas Hardy's heart. It is quite interesting to note that, how he was so much associated, because it was the place of his work. And England all over, like he has been, moving, but not that much. And even in his novel, which is called Far from the Madding Crowd, the heroine, the main protagonist, whose name is Bathsheba, not from the evil movies Bathsheba. We are talking about a very beautiful, a pretty girl from his novels. One of the characters was inspired by his real life wife when he first met her. So, yes, he's romantic in nature, very much associated with the idea of how things are being taken, in the real life. Um, he talks about death, he talks about love, he talks about feminism, he talks about poverty, darkness, and fate. What do I mean by darkness? It means hopelessness, it means suffering. So pessimism, what is the opposite of the pessimism? He's quite a pessimistic person. What do you know?
Optimistic.
Excellent. The opposite is going to be, the antonym is going to be optimistic. So over here, you need to understand that his one of the famous novels, which was called as, can you write some of his works even? Let me share a fresh page so that you're able to jot down. Azhar Khalid, Azhar, hello, beta. Have you joined us? I believe there are 5 students. I am no, we have Aliza Anwar. Aliza, can you say a bit of hello so that we know that you're here? This is your first class with me.
Yes.
Hello, dear. How are you, beta?
Alhamdulillah, miss. How are you?
Okay, okay. Yesterday I did have an introductory class. You can follow it on our YouTube channel, which is Wales College YouTube channel. And then after the class, you can get back in touch with me on WhatsApp. I can really help you what actually we did. Today's class is about this, and I'm recapping beta. You
Okay.
have to ask me questions wherever you find a bit of difficulty. In literature, we don't have only a poetry section, we have a drama section, we have a novel section. We are starting with poetry section because it's quite competitive. It has no choice, and then we are given with 28 poems, and they are very short and they revolve around some magnificent themes. So today I am teaching you how to look at a poem, and it all starts with what are the requirements for an analysis. So let me please, beta Aliza, I would request you. By the way, Aliza, your name reminds me of one of my previous students, Aliza Sarfraz, who ended up getting an A star in English literature. So
Mashallah.
perhaps your name is a sign that once again we have students like Mahnur, um, a very talented student. I'm trying to make you people introduce with each other. So that would be even better. Why? Because literature is all about discussion. It's about interpreting your own opinions and ideas, but very much in the context of the work that you do. So everyone holding on to their piece of paper, and they are writing down poetry section and what are the requirements. And I'm just going to write over here again. I started off with Thomas Hardy, who is the poet of today's topic, which is A Wife in London, and I gave few points about him. This is Victorian society. I'm not writing the whole thing again, but all I'm trying to make you understand is the concept that he's a great advocate of the idea feminism. A lot of people, critics basically, titled him, labeled him as a feministic writer. This is ironic because in Victorian times, which happens to be quite, a patriarchy was ruling. What do we mean by this part? Patriarchy is called dominating male dominating society. So in order to understand the poetry, you need to understand the poet. He's one of the like he's not by profession a poet only, but he was a novelist in the first place. You ask me this question, why did he give up, writing novels? There was a reason behind. His novels got banned. What did he write that it got banned? As a novelist, he produced some of the most interesting works ever to attempt in the Victorian society. The first one was, which actually hit the heights. There was a number of them, but these were the two. Tests of the Duber, and then you have Far from the Madding Crowd. Now there is something interesting that is happening. He is a novelist of realism, and people were not ready to accept reality in the Victorian times. They said everything has to be nice. It should be a happy ending. Why are you making people suffer so much? Why the bad guy is not being punished? So the criticism started, taking toll on his thinking, and he got discouraged. Don't you think that when people criticize it too much, then they won't be able to write the way they wanted to? Another feature of his writing is that, and you will notice this in his poetry, people rejected his realism. They never wanted him to write anything which has to do with absolutely raw, like real life. So then he gave up the idea of writing the novels and he started writing poetry. But he focused upon the idea of irony. This is the crux, this is the epicenter of his poetry. What do we mean by irony? Irony means the reversal of one's expectations, which you have never thought about, that thing is going to occur. It's an element of shock, it's an element of surprise, astonishment, but at the same time, something which the human brain has never thought about that would take place. And that is exactly what has been incorporated in his poem. Is it clear? Are you able to understand? I'm being steady, I'm not going too fast, I'm not being too slow. Please tell me, are you able to understand me?
Yes, miss.
Yes, miss.
Okay, that's lovely. Safat, you're here with us, right?
Yes,
It-
miss.
Okay, now there are parts. Okay, Azhar Khalid, Azhar, can you please connect your mic, beta? Um, you just joined us, I believe, but are you able to understand what we are doing today? We are looking at Thomas Hardy, and I'm trying my best to not make him as hard that his name resonates, perhaps. So we are looking at this play, the entire details of the writer. Now, there is one more thing that you need to understand. Anyone who knows the true concept about, let me put this part, industrial revolution. You are making points today. We are working. Okay? Because this was the greatest part of the time period in obviously in Victorian times. So industrial revolution, do you actually think would have impacted any writer's craft? Yes, it impacted his work. So when you will read his poems, you would realize that in the background he is definitely talking about the changes, the transition that was taking place in the background. But here, since the poem is written in 1899, so industrial revolution was over and we were entering into the great world of capitalization. What is capitalization? Please write it down. Capitalization, anyone knows about it? Azar, you happen to be a commerce student, you probably know about it. Capitalism, any clue, beta? Any idea? Make a guess. Hmm. It was that part of the society in which the elite class was, please write it down, in capitalism. Let me insert a page so that you're able to even see better. Okay, I've added a page. We are going back. Oh, all right. So here we are. So in capitalization or the capitalism, so where elite class, the upper class, is basically spreading their small businesses. So we have a spread of small scale businesses. And at the same time, you have more investment on lands. But there is one more thing just before this part also. What happened in 1914? What happened? What happened after the 1900? If you have any idea about any sort of war, the war took place, the ugliest, the horrific wars ever. The entire world was in this war. What do we call that? Hmm. We call it World War One. And then it proceeded towards World War Two. So, what is happening over here? Basically, Thomas Hardy is entering into a phase of earlier chaos where you have World War One, World War Two, and then capitalism is finally, leading towards the other part, a later part of the century. So these are the important social circumstances. This was the most important historical background, historical plus social background that I have given you so that you can understand any poem, any drama, any sort of writing. You would always question yourself why a poet has written this poem. You don't know anything about the poet. How come you can understand a poem? So, this way, it was a brief overview. If you have any questions, please ask me right now. Please ask me any questions regarding Thomas
Miss,
Hardy.
Miss, one of his novels' name was, you said some Madding, I don't remember exactly.
Yes, Far from the Maddening Crowd.
Yes, Miss, what's the meaning of Madding?
it's it's something that when there is a crowd, it drives you crazy because you're a person who needs to have your own time, a person who just doesn't belong to the social circle, so far away from the crazy crowd, far away from the people who do not understand you, far away from the people who give you anxiety. If you look at people in an overtly crowded place, you would not feel comfortable. So it's about a character who doesn't fit into a society which tries to judge him. All right, this
Yes, Miss,
is
got it.
of the basic concept. This is a basic concept. So, and he himself is a person who would isolate himself and then write his poetry. He was never able to strike up a balance between his own married life and his career oriented passion. You realize this when his own wife died complaining about his ignorance. And then it's ironic, we call him the advocate for feminism. Just imagine a person who is writing so much in depth about ladies should be, respected, they should be given their rights, they should be, they should be at the upper stratum of the society. And he ended up not being, you know, let's say, balancing his relationship with his wife even. You know what? She died writing up a letter to his own sister, that your brother, and that letter has been saved in a museum, basically. She was angry. When you watch some of the BBC documentaries, I would request you, for in A levels, it is important. I will share a link in my, this WhatsApp group, and there's a documentary that you can watch. That would be better. Yes, sometimes people forget their own duties. Yes, you're right, Aliza. I really like the way you commented. Some of my students turn on their mic. Someone just writes in the chat box. This is interesting to connect with the teacher. Please keep on this attitude so that we can learn even better. And then this was again even interesting. Just imagine what happened when his wife died. He married his own assistant, and who was looking into the work, who work for publishing, and they both excelled quite well. So let's get back to the poem itself, and I'm super delighted to have you all. I hope you can understand me. Aliza, do you understand me?
Yes, Miss.
Okay. Now we have a wife in London. The screen is clear. Do I need to zoom in more? I think it's absolutely clear. All right. So, A Wife in London, December 1899. Before you read, have a look at the shape of the text. Write down just in your notebook shape of the text. I'm mentioning over here shape of the text. Does it make you question? Let me show you the complete size, the full length size of the poem. So you have over here, that's it. So how many parts do you see in the poem in Roman numbers? What do you see?
Parts.
You see here 1, you see here 2. So it is, the poem is divided into 2 phases. What are we going to write over here? There are 2 phases that have been given in the form of stanzas. In each phase, we have 2 stanzas. What do we call them? Stanzas, right? So, she sits in the tawny vapor that the Thames side lanes have uprolled, behind whose webby fold on fold, like a waning taper, the street lamp glimmers cold. A messenger's, a messenger's knock cracks smartly. Flash news in her hand of meaning it dazes to understand, though shaped so shortly. He he has fallen in the far south land, and there is dot dot dot. We need to understand one thing. A wife in London is in her house, and there comes a postman carrying a letter. Letter from whom? From her own husband, who has been out there fighting in a war. He is a soldier. Now, what happens, what Hardy is doing with us, it's a psychological insight into the mind of this wife. We are being positioned just like the wife. We are looking through the lens of her eye. She sits in the tawny vapor. By nature, he's a novelist, he's a great storyteller, Thomas Hardy. So he's writing even a poem in more like a prosaic way. I'm using the word prose. Let me just quickly remove this part so that you're able to understand even better. Yes, the 2 phases. The bit of the story that I'm giving you, you need to understand. Yeah, blue would be better. So over here, she has been used. So you will be mentioning she is used as third person singular pronoun. When the narrator, when the poet uses third person singular pronoun, it means it is known as omniscient narration. The poet has used omniscient narration by the help of she, which is third person singular pronoun. Hardy tells the tragic story. Hardy tells the tragic story of a wife in this poem. Tragedy is an ultimate forte, is the key characteristic of Hardy's writing style. He cannot help writing about and only about tragedy and suffering. Suffering is inevitable. We humans need to suffer and then conquer our fears. So, will she be able to accept the death of her loved one? Her only beloved happens to be, her husband. She sits in the tawny vapor. So it turns out that it is December, so it's cold and it's dense atmosphere. The atmosphere is the mood of the poem. The atmosphere, please write it down. I believe this class, yes, indeed, it is on the record. So you can definitely watch it on YouTube as well to catch up your points also when you have to revisit the lesson. I'm still on the first two lines. The point is not to complete the poem because we are introducing ourselves, exposing ourselves to the first time to the poem. So I'm going to take a bit of time. Okay. There is one more thing. The mood is cold and dense. It's December. In the world of literature, December, what season is this? It's winter. Excellent. It's winter. Yes, indeed. Now, winter happens to be symbolic of what? Fill in the blank, please. When you say summer, that means youth, color, vibrance, right? So when you say winter, in the world of literature,
Melancholic.
it's quite melancholic, you're right. Before you write this, what does it stand for? For example, red color, danger, love. Then we have black color. There is some people who have obsession with black color. So every color, every season, or anything around it can be interpreted in certain symbols. So it is a symbol. It is symbolic of death, dullness, sickness. In the world of literature, usually when it comes to winter, we're talking about these times when it is too hot. So even there is physical suffering, at the same time it is internal suffering. So can you just draw this parallel between the crisis of wife in London, and at the same time you have even the surroundings are adding up to the intense atmosphere. So the atmosphere is not just and we cannot call it ambience. Ambience is taken to be more in a positive way, where you are, someone has commented on yes, dark and dull. Oh, you already answered it, I think, and I looked at it later. Anyways, thank you. Thank you for typing it up. But yes, you're going very strong. Mahanur and Eliza turn out to be a bit more active. So I would request, I know Azhar and Safad are able to understand too, but I would request them to please share the comments also. So it is clear over here. Now I need to erase this once more again so that you can have a close look at some of the other parts. Okay. Do you notice from here till here that by the end of the line, we don't have a punctuation? Do you notice that? Do you notice that there is no punctuation over here? Right?
Yes, miss.
Why is that so? Is it by, is it by accident that he's doing it? Is it by accident? No, he isn't. Let's pay more attention over here. When you will be asked to read, or perhaps the way I'm reading, just look at this. You are not supposed to be taking a pause over here. She sits in the tawny vapor that the same side lanes have uprolled. Take
It's
a pause.
continuous, right?
What do we call this when the idea runs from the first line to the second line? It is, and then you have, all right, behind whose webby fold and fold like a warning tape, or the street lamp glimmers cold. So the idea is running from here, and then the idea runs from here. So this is known as enjambment. Run on lines or we call them enjambment. What do they do? They basically indicate the pace of the poem. So you tell me the pace of the poem, which happens to be the speed. So is it fast? Is it steady? Is it slow? It's fast. Very good, Safat. It's fast. And why is that so? Because there is an urgency. She is waiting. She's waiting for the postman to just carry one of the telegrams, one of the letters, one message from her husband. She is just waiting, and there is there's an urgency, there's this desperation to receive a message. Okay, so that shows the pace of the poem. Is it clear? Is it clear? It's not
Yes,
tightly
miss.
punctuated. It's not tightly punctuated. If it is tightly punctuated, that means the okay, suffer. Can I have more feedback, please? I would request Azhar Khalid. Azhar, where are you, beta? Azhar hasn't
Yes,
said
miss.
even one. Hello. So, are we making the bullet points, beta? Are we writing it down?
Okay, miss.
Okay. So let's just read the whole poem in the first place, and then we are going to look at what exactly is being communicated. So I would ask Mahnur to read the second stanza. Can you better do me the honor?
Yes, miss.
Okay.
A messenger's knock cracks smartly, flashed news in her hand. Of meaning it dazes to understand. Though shaped so shortly, he has fallen in the far south land.
So what is this letter telling her? He he has fallen in the far southland.
He had died.
He had died. Fallen is basically, again, I'm not reading. See, I'm getting into too much of the analysis. Just hold on. I'm too desperate to just critically comment on it. But he has died. It's another word for fallen. So I'm going to teach you what is this technique called. But Azhar Khalid, while reading this last line, and I'm talking about this one, I'm highlighting it over here. He he has fallen. This is the manner in which the wife must have been reading. So why do you think these are the two hyphens are being used over here? Why? Aliza, Sarfarat, Safat, or Mahnur, what do you have to say?
Miss, it's
Hmm.
unbelievable to her. She cannot accept the
It's a
fact that
shock.
that's
It's very good. It's a
Yeah,
shock
she's
to her.
projecting
What,
the
you
thought.
can't accept the death of your loved ones. And it comes as like in the most startling manner. She's absolutely taken aback. So how come she's able to understand that I wrote a letter to him asking about, just before this letter arrived, she had written a letter to him. She posted a letter that when are you going to return, and a lot of plans and everything. And now she is receiving this letter where he is informing her that we will be together and we will do this and all of that. But the news came to her that he's no more. So that means his wife's letter would never reach to him. Obviously, he's no more. So there is there is a problem that has been indicated over here. Next, we are moving on this part. Okay, tis the morrow. Morrow is a classical diction word. It stands for tomorrow. You can write it down. Tis means it is. Okay, tis the morrow. The fog hangs thicker. The postman nears and goes. The postman performs his duty. He comes and he goes. A letter is brought whose lines disclose by the firelight flicker his hand, whom the worm now knows. Under that firelight, where he was sitting and he wrote with his own hand, now his hand is known by whom? whom the worm now knows. What do you mean by this last line?
He has been buried.
He has been buried. My students are very smart. I'm impressed. Thank you for filling that gap in between when I ask these questions. His hand, whom the worm now knows. That means now the earthly creatures are feeding upon his body. He has been buried. He must be in the graveyard. Fresh, firm, penned in highest feather. So you remember in the olden times, like not exactly, we don't have to call it olden times. It was just Victorian times. Feather-like pens they were using. Page full of his hoped return, that I'm returning and will do this, and of home planned jaunts of break and burn in the summer weather. It is December, the time in which she received the letter, and now he was reporting about that he'll be joining her back in the summers, and it will be a great month and of new love that they would learn. He stopped it right over here, and he makes the reader think what? You tell me. He made the reader what? Do you sympathize? Do you put yourself into the shoes of the wife, or you sympathize with the woman's character? Do you find her pitiful? Yes or no?
Yes, miss.
Aliza, give me your thoughts about the poem. How do you take this poem? Is it sad, heartbreaking?
Yes, it is, and it shows that
Can you
she,
please come closer to your mic?
um,
Thank you, beta. Come closer to your mic.
um, she's still processing the thoughts about
Hmm.
his death,
Hmm.
and but I don't understand the last stanzas.
The last stanza. I'm telling you, the letter I write over here, it's not F. Okay. Fresh. This letter was freshly written, recently written. It was firm. His handwriting was really firm. It doesn't show any sign that he would soon be meeting his death. Penned in highest feather, penned. He wrote this letter with the feather like a quality pen, like in a highest feather. And then there is what do we call this? Basically, I'll make you explain. See, when I ask you and you open up and you tell me that there are certain lines which require more understanding because this is the first time, it's natural. It will go for that. We call this beta caesura. The pauses between the lines or in within the line or within the line makes her wonder, as if she could imagine him sitting there and writing this letter. Page, she was holding that page full of his hoped return, that my love, my wife, I would be returning soon home, and of home planned jaunts of break and burn, that I would be coming, jaunt as in like how he would be so jolly and would be breaking up free, burn in the summer weather, because they have been so much exposed to the coldness of war, the coldness of the season, and therefore it is a contrast. The difference is created to talk about by using summer weather. It's a contrast. It's the opposite of the cold weather, the winter season. So the summer season is the symbol of happy times, unlike December, which is the symbol of death and of new love that they would learn. That they both, the wife and obviously her husband, the soldier who died. So it is so ironic, it is so shocking that she received his letter saying that I am coming to you and we are going to enjoy our summer season. However, he's dead. Just before that, he's dead. He's no more. Future thoughts. Yes, yes, indeed. She was thinking about how they could have been together. Now they are being separated by death. They are being separated by death, but their love is eternal. She can't help thinking of herself being with her husband, that love is beyond death. The concept is of new love that they would learn. The new love is, you know, the eternity of love. Even death cannot separate eternity of love. Now, the new love which is between them, and it would last till the rest of her life, is going to be a spiritual love, you know, making prayers for him and just thinking to, be joined with him, joining him in life after that death. So, is it clear? Did you understand the concept? Did you
Um,
understand the concept?
yes, that means that whenever we're reading a new poem, first we have to learn about the
Poet.
poet. Yeah,
Exactly, a bit about the poet. Otherwise, you won't know why would he write down such a poem. A
yeah,
bit
you're
about the
right.
poem. And there is an abundance of information, but you need to make sure. I told even yesterday, a good A-level student is one who has excellent
Re-
research skills, and I'm going to guide you. Yes, Beta, please ask me.
no, Miss, I was saying resources.
Resources, every note you see, just under this poem you have the entire analysis. Then there are so many other, my students who mashallah got A and A stars, I've got their responses, the way I checked their scripts. So I will be sharing each and everything. This is only your second class. I have not yet launched you in writing down the analysis. Today's idea was only about how to look at a poem. Number one, read about the poet, a bit about, just to have an overview. All right, it says 1899. What time period was this? Usually, you people are lucky. The poems are short and precise, except one or two. It's quite a precise poem, isn't it? And he narrates it like a story, that there's a woman sitting and how things are happening with her. So, again, if you notice, destiny, fate is playing a trick against her. Did you notice that? I mentioned in the beginning of the lesson that this, let me scroll up so that you can be able to look at it even properly. Okay, so here we are. We're going back up. So the pauses within the lines are known as what, beta? The pauses within the lines, what do we call them? Why there are pauses? Why? What do we call them? Hmm. All right. So we have, please write it down. I'm repeating again. I'm repeating again. You may write it down here. The technique, this is called caesura. Caesura is basically better in Greek and Latin words. This has been taken from the Greek, and it is a break between words, a break, pause between words. This is the opposite of enjambment. Enjambment has no break. It's like running on lines. All right. But you be careful. Street lamp is a compound word. It's written over here. But this is a caesura. This colon is a caesura, right? Though shaped so shortly, the letter was shaped so shortly, he has fallen. All right. So is there any question over here? Please ask me. Excellent. Safat, you already knew about it. I'm so amazed. And you have already written. Congratulations. Your answer was right. Azhar Khalid, past memories are being refreshed when you are, learning about literature. Your past memories. Do we have Azhar with us? Yes. Azhar, hello. Azhar had been a literature student, and I hope to revive the same spirit. Okay, so we are just moving. I'm going to stop sharing the screen, and I'm just going to give you a bit of for first 2 3 lines as how you need to start off. So this was a bit of an idea that I've given you about so historical and social background. When it comes to talking about the poet himself, it has to be historical and poetic background. So we are looking at the analysis of the poem. How will you begin? You will be writing A Wife in London. Don't write like this. A Wife in London is written by Thomas Hardy. Thomas Hardy's name will be mentioned. You rather begin, what is this poem about? Okay, your homework for tomorrow's class is simple. You will research and this is your homework. I just need to know an overview. What is this poem about? In your own words, you may research, you may find different resources. What is this poem about? Give me an overview. As simple as that. So that is your task. We have come to an end of our lesson. And if you have any questions, please ask me. You have any questions over here?
No, miss.
Um, I have one question before I dismiss the class. Can anyone just let me know do we have rhythm? Do we have rhyming at the end of the lines? Vapor, taper, rolled, fold, cold, smartly, shortly, hand, stand, and. Do we have rhythm? Is it
Yes,
following a
miss.
rhyming scheme?
It
Did you
is.
notice that? One more. Do we have rhythm in the second phase of in the second part of the poem? Yes
Yes,
or
miss.
no? Do we have thicker, flicker,
Flicker.
goes, close,
L-
nose, feather? But the last is stanza. It doesn't have any.
Yes, it
It
does.
doesn't
It does. It has weather, feather,
have
weather.
feather, weather, burn and learn. So what are we going to talk about? We are going to write
Return
about
to.
would learn, yes. And then return, indeed, return and learn, and then burn. Yes, all of them are rhyming together. When a poem is rhyming towards the end of the lines, you have to connect it with an overall context, that the acceptance of the loss of the loved one is there. The character, the main protagonist in this poem, the wife has accepted the death. She has embraced the new love in between them, that it will hold the quality of an eternal hope, and love after death. So it's quite unique in its own way. One thing more that you need to notice, that why towards the end we have longer lines as compared to the shorter lines, because they were adding up dramatic tension. Short lines, when people are in a rush, they read short and precise, they need to be quick, it should be quicker to understand. or perhaps there is loss. You don't read or talk. You must have seen people when they are sad, they don't talk that much, isn't it? When you have lost your loved one, God forbid, you don't talk that much. You stay quiet, you speak less. And such is the concept towards this poem. Now, when you look at this part, only this line, only this line is enough elaborate. So, what is it doing? And what is it doing? This is better called the spurts of her emotions, as if she suddenly burst. There's a spurts of emotions, and she can't help talking about the happy times, spurts of emotions of, for being with him in happy times. Like future thoughts are very happy. So for happiness, you talk a bit more elaborate in excitement. And that's it for the lesson today. Thank you very much. It was lovely to have you all. Quickly checking, marked your attendance all good. Looking forward to see you in my next class. And I'm sharing this document also in my WhatsApp group. That's it for today. Thank you, Beta. Take good care of
Thank you,
yourselves.
Miss.
Allah
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 Hafiz.
Hafiz.
Hafiz.